Okay, welcome back. Fish and a rice cake. Fish and a rice cake. It's officially changed now, isn't it?
We've settled. That's what we've been pushing it as. Yeah.
We've
rice cake.
it was too long, too much of a mouthful.
It is.
I couldn't be arsed writing it in my captions, to be honest, for Instagram, which was the main
I
thing.
always forgot which way around it went.
Yeah, it was
Fish
like
and a rice cake. It's shorter and it's snappy.
rants, reps, rants. And it was just too much R's, too much alliteration going on there for me. And, you know, I just need.
I've had a few people message being like, "Yeah, fish and a rice cake is much better."
It works.
Like it
works.
Easier.
And I think it's a realistic spin on what we're doing. You know, it's fitness.
Yeah,
but it's not too serious fitness.
Yeah. It's like ironic, isn't it?
Fish and a rice cake.
Yeah. Hope, and it was funny because I got some feedback from a client the other day, and he was literally like, in his feedback, he put, the best thing about coaching is you don't just get a plan where it's just eat another bit of fish and another bit of a rice cake. And he hasn't listened to the podcast, I don't think. He'd not mentioned it once. And I was like, ties in quite well. I was like, so I tried using it a bit on socials to push in to be like, we do have a podcast called Fish and a Rice Cake. So yeah, it works quite well. So yeah, we're definitely settled on that now. And
on that.
Yeah, I think people prefer it. Also, I've had a few messages. People say, "Yeah, it's better. It's just easier to remember.
Just easier for me more than anyone else."
Like, make our lives easier. Yeah. You sort yourself out.
So I'm Jake.
Yeah,
Jake.
I'm Jake as well.
Yeah, we're both Jake. Yeah. Although yesterday I actually had someone follow me. I don't. They might have followed you. I'm assuming they did as well, which was quite interesting because it shows that the podcast is doing okay as well because they followed me off the back of the podcast. So they found the podcast before.
Oh, really?
Me on Instagram.
Oh, who was it?
Which is the first one.
You have to show them later.
Yeah, I'll show you in a bit. And I just kind of messaged saying, "Oh, thank you for the follow, appreciate it."
Yeah.
It's like, it's all good. Like I just found you from your podcast, and I was looking for Jake and Jake, and I was like, we're gonna have to get him back to Big Dave.
That's what it feels like to be famous.
Yeah, I think we're famous, mate.
Well, yeah, I don't think they followed me. They followed
you. But yeah, so that was quite interesting though, because I was like, oh fuck, like people are actually finding the podcast and not the Instagram.
Yeah,
so it could be. It could
Although I looked at the breakdown of one of the episodes the other day, and was it the episodes or was it one of my emails? And like 70% of the listens were from the USA.
Yeah,
and I was literally like, that's weird.
I have got 2 clients in the USA.
Have you? I've not got any. I've got a few in. I've got one in Germany and a few and one in Denmark. And one in Dubai, and that's it. That's about as international as it gets. No, but you've got a proper contingent.
Yeah, I've got
like a little
5 or 6 clients.
Yeah,
in Hong Kong. So if they're listening, thank you for listening. But no, they're class. Like they're honestly brilliant clients. I think the way of life there, they're very social. Like all the fucking time. They won't mind me saying that. But it's also like a mad fitness place. Like everyone there wants to be in shape from what I can gather. So
yeah.
They walk everywhere, like they do 20,000 steps a day. All of them, they train like 5-6 times a week. They just enjoy a beer, but they're great clients.
Living the dream, aren't they?
Yeah, I love it.
It's not too bad. So today we're going to be talking about, well, we've called it the shit side of transforming your physique, but I don't actually think that's quite accurate. I think we'll probably term it the stumbling blocks or why you haven't been able to transform your physique. We'll think of something snappier to put on socials and hook you in. So by the time you watch this, we'll have thought of something snappier.
You'll be hooked in by the time you watch it.
Absolutely.
But now we've got you. You're seeing the process that we go through of deciding a title.
We write it beforehand and then we change our minds afterwards. Like we still need to make it fit, but the one we thought of originally was not great. But no, it is because it's something that I know I was stuck on a long time, and you've said yourself you used to do, and it's essentially it's not committing to a phase for long enough. And by a phase we mean a fat loss phase or a dieting phase or a muscle gaining phase, something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's something that I used to do. I mean, if I look back to my early years, this is exactly what I used to do. So I'd be losing fat for a couple of weeks. Started to feel a bit skinny. Didn't like the fact that my arms didn't feel as big as my t-shirts anymore. I'd be like, shit, need to put some muscle on. And then I was going to like what would probably be now classed as a dirty bulk. I was just eating a shit load of food and starting to lift loads of weights. And ultimately, it meant that I actually never progressed in either. And I just kind of stayed the same year round without ever seeing any real progress. And I think that a lot of our clients who come to us, they are the same. And actually, I'd probably say the main trait of certainly my male clients who come to me is that they can't commit properly to one or the other, and especially a fat loss phase, because I think that muscle building has its own, and we're going to go through trials and tribulations of what both entail, but sticking to it is you have to know what to expect, and you have to expect to for it to be tough at times, and it isn't going to be easy. You know, you are going to experience, like you say, when you're going through a dieting phase, feeling a bit skinny maybe. Through a gaining phase, you might be gaining a bit of body fat at the same time, and the mental battles are very different for both, but you're going to have to experience both.
Yeah, I think so. I recently did like on gaining phase, didn't I, for like 10 months, where I think I was in it when we started this, maybe the first couple of episodes. I think I was still on, maybe like I was up to like 5,000 calories a day, something like that. And I shared quite a lot of that on YouTube, so go and watch it if you haven't already. There's quite a lot of videos of me going through that gaining phase and basically just chatting about the shit side of it, because it is difficult, and it was quite useful at the time because I would end up having conversations with a few people who were doing the same thing and really struggling with it, because either dieting or building muscle, they're not, you sort of expect it. Certainly we'll start with, because so it's like you, I used to do the same thing. I used to be like, right, I need to lean down a little bit. So I'd diet for like 4 or 6 weeks. And then either I'd be like, oh, I feel really small, or I feel like I've lost size, or someone else would be like, oh, you're looking a bit small, aren't you? Like almost joking, but almost not. Yeah. And then I'd be like, yeah, I need to put some size on. And then I'd do the same thing. It'd be like, right, straight into a bit of a dirty bulk, get loads of food in, train legs, go to Five Guys, like, or KFC or whatever it was. And then after 4 or 6 weeks again, you're like, oh, I've got a bit of a belly already, like, and I've not put any muscle on. Like, what do I do? I was like, well, I'll diet this back off and then I'll try again. And you never get anywhere. But
you never diet long enough to see the fruits of your labour from the gaining part, and you never gain for long enough to actually add on any actual amount of tissue. You're just putting body fat on and losing the body fat. It's literally all you're doing.
Yeah.
And you have to go through commitment for a period of time.
And this is what I was sort of trying to say is like, so the recent muscle building phase I did was 10 months, which is long, but it's not ridiculously long. Like, you could easily do a good 2 or 3 years, really, if you really wanted to push it.
Building muscle takes time, doesn't it? People don't want to hear it.
Time if you're natural,
Natural, it
takes a hell of a long time. And you go, you know, when you're going through that process, it sounds great. Like, you're lifting heavier in the gym, you're able to pretty much eat what you want, as long as you're hitting a few basic things like higher protein and whatnot, but getting plenty of fruit and veg in. But it's really difficult because you have to, especially again as a natural, you're not going to build muscle as quick as you gain body fat. So any new muscle that you are building as you're going through that process is going to be hidden by that excess body fat. So you have to accept the fact that you're going to put some fat on. You're going to look a little bit worse. Like every week, if you're doing your check-in pictures,
you look a
little bit worse, and you look smaller.
Yeah, you do look
You feel like you look smaller because you can't see your muscle quite as much. It doesn't have as much definition to it, and it's so hard. And I was talking to a few people about this, because when I was putting videos on YouTube about it, like what I was eating or my training or how I was feeling, and I'd go through like check-in pictures and how they were different and sort of, you know, dealing with that side of it. They'd be like, it's the exact same. They're like, I'm really, really struggling. I want to put size on, but I really don't like seeing myself just essentially look worse and worse every single week.
You know, there's an actual word for it. Steve Hall spoke about it. There's an actual word for that kind of fear of gaining fat in a gaining phase.
Right.
There is like a genuine word for it. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway,
not smart enough.
But I clearly had it because I just. It sounds a bit stupid, but like when you're younger, you kind of identify with like your physique a little bit more. As you get older, that changes and you understand things a lot more. But when I was younger, I was always kind of in half decent shape. And the second I'd start to lose some abs, I would shit myself and I'd be like, fuck, I don't like this. And that's why one of the reasons I think I would probably kind of go backwards. Not that I had abs all the time, but you know what I mean? It was that kind of feeling of being like, shit, I'm gaining fat. And like you say, I mean, I've got a client at the moment, Evan. Big shout out to Evan. I know he watches the YouTube episodes, and he's literally just done 6 months gaining. I think he's put on about like 12, 13 kilograms. And our conversations on a weekly basis in his check-ins have literally just been about the mental battles.
Yeah. That's
you know, and it's about the fact that, you know, okay, when you put your t-shirt on, you're feeling maybe your arms look a bit bigger in your t-shirts and stuff, but it's not going to fit well around the waist. You know, your shorts are going to be tighter, your jeans are going to be tighter. You're going to have to go through that, dealing with that kind of shit. I'm feeling a little bit tubby in certain areas here, and I don't look any better.
Yeah.
And I say to a lot of guys that come to me, sometimes I look at them and they go, I want to build some muscle. And I'm like, you've got fucking tons of muscle. I'm like, you need to, if you want to look bigger, you need to probably lose 10 to 15 kilograms.
You'll look bigger.
And you're going to look bigger.
Yeah.
And I say that a lot to people. So when if someone like signs up, I'll show them people on my page and I'll be like, he lost 15 kilograms, he lost 20. but they all look considerably bigger. All we're doing is we're getting you to a point of actually seeing the muscle tissue that you've got and the actual muscle fibers, and it's just bringing that out.
Yeah, and that's it. Like if you're going into a gaining phase, it's not a 6-week, 12-week thing. Like you need to be realistic and like give yourself at least like 6 months, and just be very gradual. Obviously, like we said earlier, we used to jump straight into like the dirty bulk of just basically eat as much as you can.
Yeah.
It lasts about 4 weeks because you just gain too quickly. You feel like crap because you're eating crap food as well. So like the way I'll always do it is very, very slight surplus. So you're gaining about 1% of body weight a month.
Yeah.
like on average, that's what I
can even
pretty much aim for.
For the people who are really concerned about kind of gaining body fat, can even be 0.5 to 1%.
Yeah,
somewhere within that region. Yeah.
But the longer you can stay leaner, and the longer you can stay leaner, the longer you can drag that phase out. And obviously, the longer you can drag that phase out, the more muscle you can potentially going to build. And you need to change your focus during that phase from, and this is something I used to speak to a lot about when I was going through it, was like my focus during that phase, although it's hard because you can't just not notice when you're gaining body fat, you need to try and shift your focus to your training instead and just be like, right, how is my training going? Am I getting stronger in certain lifts? Am I setting targets with certain lifts? Like, how am I looking in clothes? Like, because like I said, you do look bigger in clothes, you fill them out a bit more, which is great. You can't just do it based off of how you're looking in the mirror because you won't last very long.
Definitely. And that's what you have to critique yourself on that more. So like, again, with our clients who have just done the photo shoot recently, for example, a lot of them are probably some of them might be going into some form of either a maintenance kind of maybe reverse diet and going to maybe a bit of a gaining phase. And I've said, listen, we don't, I don't want you reporting back to me talking about kind of too much to do with how you're, obviously if you're concerned about it, tell me, but let's concentrate, let's move the focus away from the scales of saying, if you're not feeling as defined, like don't worry too much about that. And I want you to feedback more on how your recovery is. Are you pushing yourself harder in the gym? Can we get some training videos and really kind of work on intensity on that side of things? And that's, they're the metrics you have to focus on a lot more during a gaining phase.
Yeah.
Again, not chasing like DOMs or anything. You don't want to be having that all the time either. But, just making sure that you're pushing yourself and you're making the most of the additional food and the additional calories. And if you do that properly, and a successful gaining phase, I suppose, for example, how much did you gain in your gaining phase there?
About 11 kilos.
Okay.
So I went from about 70 to about 81 in about 10 months. So it was about a kilo a month, which is arguably slightly more than the rate of gain of 1% we were looking to get.
Yeah.
But what happened with mine, and this happens a lot with people that do photo shoots, and you'll have had clients do it, is the first 4 or 5 months, my food was going up every week and my weight just didn't budge. Like I stayed around 70 kilos for ages with food going. It wasn't until I got to about 4,000 calories a day that my weight then started going up and started going up a little bit more and more as we sort of pushed it up. So yeah, it was about 11 kilos over that period of time.
Yeah, and so now we want to look at it and go, so do you remember what you weighed last time you did your photo shoot?
About 67 kilos. Okay. Very, very light.
Right, and what do you think you'll be going into this shoot?
Lighter.
You'll be lighter.
It's weird. So we're already down now at 70 kilos.
Yeah.
And we've easily got another 4 or 5 to come off.
Okay.
And definitely, like when you look at the pictures, there's a big difference from a muscularity point of view. But we're definitely looking like we're going to come in lighter, which is weird. But leaner as well, obviously.
But again, like you can see it in your pictures. Yeah, it's evident that you have gained more muscle tissue during that time. So it's like that's how it should look. But again, talking about time frames, that's how long it's going to take.
It is, and you have to, like we're saying, in that gaining phase, you have to accept that you're only really going to see the product of what you've been building during that phase when you diet down. Because I'm 10, 11 weeks into this diet now, something like that. And in the last 2 weeks, I've only just now started seeing the difference between the last time I was this lean, because I'm now lean enough to be able to notice those sort of subtle differences, and they are subtle differences. Like a 10-month gaining phase, I'm not going to have gained 5 kilos of muscle. Like it's just ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's definitely the common stumbling block number one. Like, is just not giving yourself enough time to actually build muscle.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, people don't give themselves enough time to lose body fat as well.
Yeah.
We see this all the time. I used to do it. I think generally what happens, of course, is we see people start a diet, start a cutting fat loss phase, whatever you want to call it. bit of weight comes off in the first few weeks, you're happy, but you don't really see any changes in your physique because, as we know, the majority of the weight that initially comes off is just going to be down to the fact you've got less food in your digestive system. Glycogen stores are being depleted. Yes, there's going to be some body fat that's come off, of course there is, but it's majority of other things. And then because you're not seeing the changes you want, people generally give up at that point. Okay, so they're feeling a bit smaller because they've lost they've depleted those glycogen stores from maybe like the areas you want. Like at the moment, I'm dieting. I'm like my biceps feeling a bit smaller, my chest is feeling a bit smaller. You know, I'm feeling a little bit flat in that area, but I know I have to get through that in order to see.
Of course you do. Yeah. If you don't get through your glycogen stores in your muscles as a way of your body producing energy, it's not then going to shift more towards your fat stores as well to break them down. So you do have to just, again, when you're dieting, accept, even when you're like, oh, I feel like I'm looking really small, it's almost a bit flip it. Instead of it being like a bad thing, just be like, okay, cool, well, that means it's working.
Yeah.
Like push through it.
And you will ultimately end up looking bigger once we get you through the fat loss phase.
100%.
But yeah, we've both experienced it. And generally speaking, fat loss phases, it depends on how much fat you've got to lose, of course. Everybody's very individual. But generally, a fat loss phase would probably be a lot shorter than a muscle.
Oh, it'd definitely be shorter. Like if we're saying 1% of body weight a month for a gaining phase, you're looking at 1% of body weight a week for fat loss, really. Depending how aggressive that you want to go with it. You could go anywhere from 0.5% to 2%, really, but 2% would be going like balls to the wall.
Yeah.
And so then it's just a case of how much you've got to come off.
Yeah.
And then that's how long it's going to take. And then, like we said in previous episodes, add a bit of extra time on for events and stuff that come up.
And the mental challenges are very different in a fat loss phase. So obviously you're going to be hungry. You know, at times you might be a little bit low energy and stuff, you know, at times, not all the time. I think a lot of people overthink that side of things. But again, you know, it's a different challenge to building muscle. I probably think it's easier. Like
dieting
from a mental
a lot easier
because you're seeing results, whether it's on the scales, whether it's in your measurements, whether it's in your pictures, you see results. Or you can almost see them weekly. Whether it is in your pictures or the scales or whatever, you know, there's one way or shape or form of seeing results on a week-to-week basis in a fat loss phase. Which drives you forward. And, you know, we spoke about this in one of the previous episodes, is like, you know, when you see results, you get more motivation. So, for example, last week last week I weighed in at like 90.6 kilograms. Nothing's changed in terms of my pictures, but I woke up this morning, it was 86.8.
Yeah.
It's already down like 3 kilograms, 3.2 kilograms, whatever it might be. And although I've not seen the change aesthetically just yet, like that drives me.
Yeah.
Fucking, I'm seeing shit move.
It does. It's literally that. So like when you're deep into that sort of gaining phase and you're not feeling great about how you look, like for me, when I was in that point, I wasn't loving the checking pictures because you can't see if you are building muscle underneath. You're not 100% confident that it's working as you would want it to be working. I wasn't fully motivated for training because I was like, I don't even know if this is actually working as well as I would want it to work. You've just got to trust that it is. But I couldn't really be asked. I was feeling sluggish all the time because of the amount of food that I was eating. Like I was just constantly tired and full. Whereas now, when I'm dieting, yes, I'm eating less food. Yes, I'm a bit hungry from time to time. Yes, it's a bit of a pain having to go out and get like 14,000 steps a day in at the minute if it's pissing it down with rain. I've got a coat and a hat though, so, you know, you just crack on with it anyway. But the benefit of that is you're seeing changes every single week. When you're training, you're seeing different details. You're more motivated to train because you're like, there's almost a direct return to, well, when I train, I can see a little bit of difference.
Yeah, you might go and do a lat raise and you're like, oh, my lats are modified.
You want to see how you're looking? Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And obviously now with us having the goal of the shoot as well, we're obviously doing it towards something. So it is, I personally, dieting from a psychological point of view is a lot easier than a gaining phase.
Not saying it's easy because nothing.
It's not easy.
It's not easy,
but your motivation will be higher. Your enjoyment will be higher. Yeah. You'll want to train a bit more. Definitely. Like there's a more direct return.
And that's it. And I think people, they always feel very hard done by when you're on a diet because you're reducing calories and you're going to have to be hungry. I get it. You are, but also on the flip side of that, as we said, you know, when you are, if you ever get to that point where you want to gain some muscle, trust me, like that shit is very hard as well. So you know, none of this stuff is easy, I suppose, is probably what we're trying to say. But
no, it's not. But if you genuinely want to make like a substantial or significant difference, you have to be realistic and just be like, right, I'm going to commit to this goal for X. So how we'll typically do it, if it was someone to come on board, we would generally, the first thing that we'll do is a dieting phase, because generally people have got a little bit that because the leaner you are, the easier you're going to build lean muscle tissue as well. Not only that, you're going to be able to see the difference a little bit better. You're going to feel like we've just said a bit more motivated for your training. You're going to feel a bit better about yourself, a bit more confident. So we're like, right, we'll diet you down quickly first. We'll get you a bit leaner. You're always going to
feel better gaining muscle on a lean frame, aren't you?
Exactly. And then go into a gaining phase. And then you have to literally be right, I'm going to dedicate the next however many, as long as you possibly can. And we might say, right, we're going to do 6 months in a slight gain. We're going to do a diet break for 4 weeks to give you a bit of your digestion, a bit of a rest, to give you a bit of time off eating as that much food. And then we're going to do another 6 months. Yep. And then we're going to do like a big diet or something like that.
Yeah.
As a realistic timeline. Or you might throw in like if things go a little bit too quick, you might be like, do you know what? For 4 or 6 weeks, we're going to do a little bit of a diet, just nice and quick.
I'm doing that with one of my clients. That Evan I spoke about.
Yeah, just tidying it up.
Doing a bit of a mini cut, just a little tidy up, and then we'll go again.
And then you go again. And that's literally it. And then you shouldn't really need to then do a full-on diet until you have a specific goal that you're doing it for, like a shoot or a comp, or you just want to do it to see what's underneath.
Yeah.
But if you do it properly, you will spend a lot more time gaining than you will dieting.
Yeah, and I think that's something, it's a little bit off topic for what we're talking about today, but I've been speaking to a lot about my clients recently because it's August, there's a lot more socials and things, and I was trying to explain to people that the vast majority of your year should not be spent dieting.
No.
You know, it should be a small chunky. Again, maybe dependent on your situation.
Yeah.
You do the first diet you ever do, if you've got a big chunk to lose, you might have to spend a year or so dieting.
Yeah.
With diet breaks included, of course. But once you've done that, like for me and you, for example, like we'll probably spend 10 to 15% of our year actually dieting. The rest of it is either at maintenance or
I think
surplus.
Yeah, I think a normal year, I think because we've got the shoot this year, for me, it's probably going to be different. About 60-40. But I think it's an easy way to look at it is be like, right, take whatever person that you've seen on the cover of a magazine or on social media that you've like, fucking hell, they're in great shape. Be like, right, well, did they get into that shape? Did they diet their way to that shape? Or do you think they spent a lot of time building muscle and then dieting? Like, they're not going to have dieted themselves bigger.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have to have spent, proportions-wise, more time building muscle than they have dieting.
Exactly.
So if you're not currently doing that, and if you're constantly just on and off building muscle, on and off dieting, spending as much time doing both, well, you're going to end up in the exact same spot.
That literally is exactly what I say to my clients when they first come on board. I'm like, one of your issues, because generally most people have got a bit of gym experience, they've tried diets, they've tried gaining phases themselves, and it's just not worked. And the first thing I say to them is, you've probably just not committed enough time. And I get it, because you're self-doubting yourself, and that's why having a coach or having someone to go, like, it's okay, you should be feeling like this, that's completely normal, let's just keep going and keep pushing.
Yeah,
you know, you just need that sounding board sometimes, which is really, really important. But just you have to see your phase through. You have to see it through, and if you do, you're gonna feel 100 times better for it.
That's really true, in the sense of, like, I think a coach is more useful in a gaining phase than in a dieting phase, from a point of view of you've got someone there to give you that confidence that, this is actually working. Like, although you can't really see the difference, this is actually going the way that we want it to go. So you just need to keep going. Because I think it's not having that 100% confidence that you're actually building muscle underneath because you can't see it. That's what pushes most people to the point where, like, I just diet. I'll just so I can feel a bit better about myself. Whereas if you've got someone else there to be like, no, it's fine. Even if you can't, because again, dieting, you can see changes every single week pretty much.
Yeah.
Gaining phases, you can't. Like, it's going to be once every 3 or 4 weeks that you might notice a subtle difference. So
the difference, and again, the difference should be in your training. You know, that should be where you are going to train better. You're going to be stronger, that's for sure. You know what I mean? And you're going to see massive progression on that side of things. But aesthetically, I mean, you'd be lucky if you see it every 3-4 weeks, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that. So stop flip-flopping from one phase to another.
That's coming from two guys who have done it. We have flip-flopped more than you can imagine. I used to do it all the fucking time, and I used to stay exactly the same. I would never lose enough body fat to see the benefits of any kind of muscle that I might have built, and I would never build enough muscle or never stick to muscle building for long enough to actually see the benefits of that side of things. So stick at what you're trying to achieve for a chunk of time, be consistent with it, and you'll look amazing at the end of it.
Yeah. Crack on.